now we're going to talk a little bit about 16-bit versus 8-bit, okay? 16-bit, the advantage of 16-bit is that there is way more dimension in the colors, okay? But what we're finding out, when the media for this particular job we print onto a Japanese paper that doesn't even have an inkjet receptor coating, so we really don't need to be in 16-bit. The difference between an 8-bit file, okay, if you go image size, and look, this here is 220 megabytes. But if we went to image mode and change this to 16-bit, now go to image size, this is, it doubles the size. It's 444-bit or megabytes, okay? So we don't actually, because the size and this being such a large image, we do not need to be into 16-bit. The reason that I brought that up is that in the header of your file, it always shows you, oh, this is an RGB image in 8-bit. Okay, so now on this particular one, we're in a 16-bit file. And this particular one here, we're in a 16-bit file. And that's because when we process these, in the beginning I was doing everything in 16-bit, but we found out we didn't have to do that. So now these files are in 16-bit, but we're going to go ahead and put these down to image mode.
This triptych will be on black canvas though.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're going to go change this to an 8-bit file. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go notice the size of that file, image size. It's a 16 by 11 at 300 resolution. So I'm going to write that down. It's a 16 by 11 at 300 dpi. Okay, the determining size of the file is always determined by your width and your height and your resolution. Okay, because you can't just tell a width and a height, because it could be a 16 by 11 at only one resolution. It's not even big enough for the internet. It's 528 bytes. So resampling is super important. If you have resampling off or on, make sure there's a specific reason for turning resampling off and on. Because resampling off and on changes or adds pixels, okay? Now notice resampling off at one resolution, this is a 4800 inch print, okay? At 25 resolution, it's a 192 print. At 300 resolution, it's a 16 by 11 print. A 16 by 11 print is the exact same file size as a 32 by 22 at 150 resolution. Notice the file size did not change. And so we need to make sure we have an understanding of our width and our height and our resolution. Okay? And then why you would have resampling off or on. Okay? Because resampling off or on is adding pixels or taking away pixels. And it's always best to stay closest to the original file size, not add pixels or not take away pixels. To add pixels makes it a bigger file, but it's not improving its quality of its size. To take away pixels is going to make it a lower res file. Okay? So that's important to understand that. Okay? So what we did is we were going to make this one be an 8-bit, and then we're going to make this one be an 8-bit. Since that's what we're building our file size in, is 8-bit. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to compare it to this fish here. We have a selection of this fish in this composite. We want to know if that's comparable to the layer size of this image. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come over to this image, and when you're in the Move tool, the shortcut key is V, or it's the very top tool in your toolbar, or the letter V. We're going to take and turn on Auto Select. Auto Select, what that means is whatever image that you click on, it will select that layer in your layer palette. So now that that's on, watch, I click on this fish, there, that's that layer. If I click on this fish, it's that layer. If I click on this fish, it's that layer. And the way you access that is from the Move tool and turn Auto Select on. Auto Select on sometimes is a pain because, like when you're selecting the word Malolo, you got to be super critical and you select, because it might just pick the background, right? See, sometimes it picks the background when you're selecting it. Like I'm trying to click the kanji and it's picking the background. So sometimes it's easier to turn Auto Select off and just go find the layer that you want and select in the layer. Okay, so it's important to know that tool because that can mess you up. Okay, so now that we have this layer selected, we're going to go copy that layer. So we're going to go Edit. We're going to go select that layer. The way we select it is when we hover over the square and we hold the Command key. which is the control key on your PC, notice it changes the hand to an icon with a square around it. That means select it. So we selected that layer, and then we're going to go Edit, Copy it, and then we're going to go File, New. Whatever is in the clipboard in Photoshop, like if you're in Photoshop and you copy something, when you go to File, New, it will actually make your new document the exact size of the image that's in your clipboard. It's kind of a nice feature. And you notice this one's 5,000 pixels by 4,000 pixels at 300 dpi. So we're going to go say OK. Oh, that's just the background? Where's our fish on that layer? Edit, copy. Let's just drag this one over here and see what it does. So it is there. So let's just go to our. We should be able to go File, New, and we're make it be a white background for now. We say OK, and then we go Edit, Paste, Command V. There's our fish. Let's just do a crop of just that fish. So what we must have done on that last composite is we must have selected the fish and turned everything to black, and then it didn't matter where it went. Ideally, it's just the selection of the fish, because then if another layer goes on top of it, or if this is on top of another layer, this black would hide something, if that makes sense. Okay, so it's better if you just have the selection of the fish. So we, for some reason, turned it to black before we pasted it over. The best workflow is actually just make it be the selection of the fish. But we're going to go see what file size this is. So I'm going to go to the crop tool. I'm going to crop just the background. And in the crop tool, it's important to notice that when you choose, every tool that you choose in Photoshop, it brings up an information palette across the top. Okay, when we're in the crop tool, we're going to make sure all this is blank, nothing's there. Otherwise, this crop tool will also do interpolation, or like image size, it will add or take away pixels. But all we're trying to determine right now is, it looks like what we did is we actually have gone bigger. We interpolated this image bigger than your original file, because we know the original file that we have is the largest we have is that last image that we just looked at. So now if we go image size, it's 15 by 11 at 300 dpi. So it's really close to the same size as this one, because this one here, let's go see what size this one is. 16 by 11 at 300 dpi. This one here, image size 16. It's really close to 16 by 11 at 300 dpi. So when we placed that other image into here, we pretty much didn't change the size, is what we just determined. Okay, so this is probably going to be easier to actually grab the black than the white, because the only selection that's going to give us a problem with is the eye. So this selection is probably going to be easier to choose this black one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the crop tool. Let's make a really critical exact crop. So I'm going to go to the history palette, take the crop tool off. I'm going to go on the crop tool, there's a thing called straighten, and we're going to actually just go select the edge of the print, and it will straighten it. And we're going to move our crop tool just to be at, like, make it this be our master. So what our first thing we were doing is we're trying to determine, is this file as good of a file? It's really hard. I don't totally have it perfect with the Wacom tablet to lift up without moving it. It's pretty good. Okay, we just want to make sure we didn't crop anything. And then this is zoom in. Okay, so let's do a selection here, and then let's do a selection with the white one and see which one we like better. Or this is see, does this have a path? So we'll go to layers, we'll go to paths. Did not save a layer or a path of this one. Okay, so now if we're making a selection, what we're going to do is go to the magic wand tool, and we're going to, the default for magic wand is 40 is the default. And we're going to do a 5-point average. That means that when you click here, it's going to look at 5 pixels all around it to determine what color that we're going to make the selection of. And it selected it, but notice it also selected the eye because that's black. And you can see that because, see, the eye isn't there. It's also selected some of these other areas. So the other way that we can do that, okay, let's go back up one. Command D to deselect it. Okay, so contiguous means that when you select this and turn it on, it only does the blacks within that edge. So it didn't look at the blacks across the whole page. If contiguous is selected off, that means when you click on black, it looks at blacks across the whole page. So notice, when I look at that one now, notice it didn't make any selections inside because they weren't connected to the fish. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to add this selection right here. Okay? And now it made a selection of all the blacks, and all we do is inverse that selection. So select inverse makes an exact opposite, and the only issue that we have is the whites on the top and the bottom. So I think it's better that we actually just go Command D since it was so easy to do that. I'm going to hit F key for it gave me just this picture, which is easier to work with. I'm going to go to the C key or the crop tool, and I'm going to take and bring this down a little bit to get rid of that white so I don't have to retouch that later. And I'm just going to give up and use the mouse trackpad because and what happens, notice that it's snapping. So it's snapping. If you hit the control key, or on yours, you're going to hit the alternate key. And when you hold that, then it gives you a micro move that just lets it move a little tiny bit. And we hit OK. And it looks like we still got white on the tail and white there. So I'm going to go to the crop tool again. I'm going to pull this side over. I'm just trying to get rid of the white so we don't have to deal with retouching that when we select the black. And we make sure that we didn't crop, it looks like it's cropping that tip off. I'm just going to zoom up here to make sure it didn't crop the tip off, and then make sure I didn't get any white on it. Okay, so to do the selection again, we went to the magic tool. I turned contiguous on for it only selected the parts that are connected, and then I hold a shift, select, and it grabs that. Okay, then I'm going to go select inverse because I only want it to select the fish, and then this time what we're going to do is we're going to go select save selection, and this is our fish outline. Okay, now notice under the channel palette, it gave us the fish outline. And so whenever you make a selection, it's smartest to actually save that, right? Okay, so now let's just go compare the quality of this one. So we'll go to 100%. And if we go to our fish outline, the way you make your selection, if you go to the fish outline, hit your control key, click on it, and it made the selection of the fish. And then if we select inverse the selection, it's going to select the background. And then on a layer, we have to make sure your layer, this layer is going to have a white background. So we're going to hit delete. We'll delete all the black. So we hit delete. And then we're going to go Command H, we can hide our selection, and we can go look at the sharpness of the fish and how good the background looks on it. And now let's go compare that. Let's go compare that to this image here. It looks like there's definitely, it looks like this one is definitely a little bit different density, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I guess they're pretty close, yeah. So now let's just try to do a selection with the white of that one. So what we're going to do is we're at the selection tool, magic wand tool, and we're going to make sure that contiguous is selected. Okay, then it's selected that. We can actually go look at that selection by hitting your quick mask, which is next to the bottom tool. Oh, now notice it actually, the white is connected there. You know what I mean? There's some white connected, so it actually made some of that, selected some of that area because the white, there's some white that actually connected in if we zoom in tight to that area. You see what I mean? Some of this white was connected. So I'm going to have to repaint that, but what I would suggest we do is why don't we just look at this one, go to 100%, and let's look at the selection of the fish, and then we'll look at it compared to this one. Should it be the one with our layers? I go to 100%. I think that this is going to be a better choice because it's less work, and I don't think the selection is any better. See what I'm talking about? Like I'm looking at those areas. Let's go look at its mouth. Okay, and then we can go look at this one. Let's go look at its mouth. Okay, so I think that we can just use the one that came off the composite because it was easier selection. We didn't have to do any painting, okay? And just to confirm it, we can go to Channels, Window Channels. Okay, we go make this fish selection and turn on the quick mask, and you can see it didn't select that area like the other one did. Okay? Okay, so now that we've made that selection, okay, we're going to go take this selection, make the selection, we're going to go Edit, Copy, then we're going to go to our black background that we created, and we're going to go Edit, Paste. It's going to drop the fish in, and we can go zoom into that, and it looks like pretty nice, yeah?
Good morning.
And the most important thing we're going to do now before we proceed is you're going to turn that to a smart layer by hitting, I hit Control and I hit Convert to Smart Object. Now we can shrink it, make it bigger, littler, we can duplicate it, and it doesn't matter if we make them bigger or littler, and we're not going to lose any size.